I used to think that being exhausted meant I was safe. Like if I was constantly busy, and tired, it meant I was actually doing life right. And since, leaving corporate, like officially being done with corporate, to kind of save my life, I have been, working to live a slower, more intentional, more mindful life, and finding that the deprogramming of the toxic system is a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. I really struggled last week. I was quite hard on myself that I wasn't doing enough, getting enough done. The house wasn't coming along as quickly as I wanted it to. Other things just weren't getting done, and then other things are piling on top of me while I'm trying to do, the stuff that the other stuff, the main stuff that I'm trying to do. And I just kind of reached a breaking point, and then I got frustrated with myself because I couldn't just slow down and do what I knew that I needed to do. And, because I've got these inner voices in my head, inner dialogue going on where, it's this constant struggle of what I should and shouldn't be doing, how I should and shouldn't be doing things. And, I need to slow down, but then there's this program part that is saying that's not the right way. And it really got to me last week. And I was doing a lot of thinking and, about how we get trapped in that cycle in the first place. We're taught to chase this specific version of safety and security, and there's a very specific way in doing things from childhood through to adulthood, and any deviation from that is really kind of looked down upon. And the corporate ladder, the constant output and the packed schedule, it's what we're taught is you've made it, you're making that money, you're doing well for yourself. And, we tell ourselves that, we're building a life, but we're really just, I think, running away from the fear of standing still, because standing still is absolutely terrifying when you've been conditioned to always be moving. I spent years thinking that if I just worked a bit harder or reached the next milestone, I'd finally feel secure enough to relax. But that moment never came, and I just kept pushing myself harder and harder until, I'm being told that if I do not leave the corporate world, because I have now severely burned myself out to the point that at this point I'll be lucky to see the year out, I will die because my body's shutting down. And I still struggle to make that decision to leave that life, despite knowing that, even grappling with, within that 24 hours before I spoke to, the company that I was working for, I really struggled with the idea of scaling back. And when they weren't amenable to that, it was a real wake-up call for me. You're going to push yourself through, no matter how sick you are, or we're going to replace you. No doubt about it. And I just realized it's a lie. The finish line, it doesn't exist. The finish line is death. And whether you get there at a ripe old age or you push yourself, to an early grave, that is the finish line. It's just about, how you want to spend your life until you get to the finish line. That's what matters. That's the point. And I really wasn't living my life in a way that, when I get to the finish line, I'm going to think that was worth it. And the system, it's designed to keep you on the treadmill, convincing you that your health and peace are fair trades for that sense of, so-called safety and security that really could change in a moment's notice with illness or job loss or whatever it is. That sense of predictability just doesn't really exist. But we believe in it. I certainly did. So we choose a slow, familiar decline over the unknown, because that is a safer way to think, to believe, to live. That's what our brain is telling us. So we stay in places, that drain us because the walls of that trap feel safe, but it is such a false safety. It's just survival mode wrapped up in a fancy title or a steady paycheck. And your body knows it, even when your brain is trying to rationalize it. When I finally stepped off that treadmill, I had an itch. The silence at home was deafening. Suddenly there was no noise to drown out how truly exhausted my nervous system was. How much healing I needed to be doing, because there was a lot I was running away from, a lot of demons I wasn't facing, trauma that I had been through that I had buried, childhood trauma, serious childhood trauma that I had been bearing for a long time. And I wasn't in a good way. And I think that's the real trap of the grind. It doesn't just tire you out, it numbs you. Because when you're always on edge, running on stress hormones and caffeine, you lose the ability to actually feel your life. You think you're coping, but you're just numb. And that's what I was. I realized that it wasn't just the burnout that I needed to heal from. There was a lot that had gone on in my life, a lot that I had gone through that I just hadn't dealt with. And, that wasn't helping my mental and physical state either. And then I looked around my house and realized I spent years trading my best energy for a machine that, as we know, will replace you in a heartbeat. We treat ourselves like these machines, expecting constant output. And then we feel guilty when we break down. I know I did. I felt weak. I felt pathetic. I felt like this is crazy that I can't keep up. Other people do. What's wrong with me? A little bit of research, and I found out that many people, don't keep up. Many people do go to early graves because of the way they treat themselves, and these, in the working world, in their personal life, on the go constantly, because we aren't cogs. We are human beings. And ignoring our gut or pushing through the warning signs, that is not a virtue. It's self-betrayal. It takes a lot of time to realize that leaving a toxic environment isn't a failure. I, even still now, it hasn't been that long, but it's been a bit of time. Even now, I still feel like, I don't know, did I make the right decision? Does this look good? Would this look good to others? Would I be judged or criticized? Is this the right thing to do? I have all these questions where I think I have failed. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. But, at the same time, the rational side of me is like, no, this has been an awakening. The deprogramming from that mindset is slow. In the beginning, it's a daily battle. It gets better. But it is a battle because, it's deprogramming yourself from a very toxic system. that measures you on nothing but output. Even now, just, I'll sit and make a cup of tea and just want to sit and, enjoy the birds outside, listen to them sing and fly around. I struggle sometimes too much to be able to do that, because my brain is trying to tell me I should be up, doing something, doing more. I'm falling behind. There's so many things that need doing. It takes a lot of patience to look that guilt in the eye and say, you know what? No, I'm actually allowed to just exist, not doing anything, but just sitting and just existing. So, it's been a bit heavy the past week or so, a bit challenging trying to work through this. I accept that my brain is still trying to rewire itself from years of toxic conditioning. But as I walk through the woods, I know I'm exactly where I need to be. There's something about nature. I wish I had, it's not like I never walked in nature before, but not enough. And no matter how much I can be raging or stressed or whatever, it is so calming just being in a place where other creatures on this planet are just existing, doing their thing. I'm choosing to be here in the mess of rebuilding instead of back on the treadmill, and that feels really good. It's not always easy, and it's definitely not glamorous. It has some glamour to it in terms of I'm enjoying the slowing down and just being more intentional and more mindful. But, there are sacrifices in choosing this sort of life and choosing time and breathing room over, status, material things, income. I've made some sacrifices, definitely leaving corporate, having to downsize, being on a much stricter budget, taking on some debt, all these things in order to save my life and rebuild. And, it's not always easy. But I do weirdly stress less and worry less now, than I did before, because I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I know that I would rather have less and actually be present to live in my life than have it all, and be too numb and too busy or both to actually enjoy it, which is what was happening before. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but if you're currently sitting at a desk feeling that slow decline, or wherever you are, if you're just trying to find your way out of that program dream into your own dream, whatever that is, please know you're not crazy for wanting something different, even though sometimes I know I felt that way. I felt I was different, a bit weird for not wanting that life. Anyways, you're not weak for burning out. You're just awake to the mess. So yeah, thank you for spending a few minutes of your day with me today. If you got this far in the video, then maybe you like listening to me as much as I like listening to me. Seriously though, as well as these deeper chat videos, I'm also going to be documenting, my actual journey of starting over, downsizing, burnout recovery, clearing debt, budgeting and healing, the real life struggles. I'll be sharing what it really looks like to successfully set boundaries, even when they come at a cost. You'll see the highs and lows of my new journey, the struggles and setbacks, and the reality of the sacrifice of leaving corporate, which comes with a lot of gains as well. And the healing I'm having to do as I finally face past trauma and exit survival mode. Just my real journey of more intentional, mindful, slower, and much smaller living, alongside some quiet, peaceful routines, reset vlogs, and days out in my little ordinary small corner of northern England. Some of those peaceful videos will be silent, some not, and some a mixture of both. Oh, and of course, I'll be documenting turning this little home into a personal sanctuary. So, just ordinary moments of starting over, finding peace, and rebuilding my life. So if that sounds like a journey you want to join, I'd love to have you here. Please consider subscribing. And until next time, take care of yourself.